You can be pretty sure that conditions are going to be very slippery underfoot and very slippery under bike as well. 125 world champion Shane Watts of Australia isn't used to this weather, and he shrugs his shoulders. Ricard Larsson a little bit more used to them though. Stefano Passeri, the first one to brave the elements, and getting his feet wet won't faze him with his experience. Of course, getting the carburettor soaked probably won't help, but they will have to wade through it. Watts decides that it's only water and it can't bite back, so he decides to follow them in. After all, if you start as number one, you do have a little to prove. Stefano Passeri is the man, in fact, who makes full use of his experience in these very European conditions, and he will take his first 125 victory of the year. Roman Michalik was forced to sit out last year due to injury, but he's very impressive here. He blows it on the stage, but Phil still manages to come back from that and finishes second. And if he doesn't have any further problems, he could be a real title contender. Shane Watts is always strong in Portugal, but that was when it was dry. Everybody knows his weak spot is a muddy trail. Today it's very muddy and he's fourth, but Ricard Larsson is showing consistent pace, third and another serious title contender. The 250 class then, last year's runner-up, Giovanni Sala, had a bad start this season. On special stage he takes two hard falls, jams a few bones, jarring himself and ruining his composure, coming home in 10th. Last year he finished second behind Peter Hansel in the World Championship, not a good start. Eric Bernard then, victory on day one. The Frenchman always among the top few, but he's had his problems. Viteri Silva third, but even Sala agrees that the Finn is likely to be a major contender for this year's title. This is the Slovak, Peter Belko, brute force on his bike, and his bike starting to exert some of the same on him. He lost track of the number of times he crashed during the weekend, but he comes back for more. Every time the bike hands out a thrashing, he takes it and gives the bike some in return. But you can't say that he's not tough, and you can't say that he's not game. You'd think he'd be getting used to it by now. Gianmarco Rossi riding in the new 250 four-stroke class. Well, time will tell if there's really a market for these machines in Europe. Some say it's just a lot of noise and no power, unlike a two-stroke, of course, which is a lot of noise and plenty of power. This is Mario Rinaldi. Problems with a lot of new competition on the 404. He doesn't have any major mechanical problems, but his times just aren't good enough to put him up at the top. He does tend to prefer the dry, rocky stuff, though, and he was fourth on the day. Well, plenty of competitors in the 404s. Only three, though, started in the 254s. This is Cyril Esquirol. Cyril Esquirol. He's won the Gilles Lally Classic more than once, so he's got what it takes on this kind of terrain, but just doesn't seem to be demonstrating it in front of the camera. This is his World Championship debut, and he takes a clear victory in the small four-stroke class. Bjorn Carlsen, always among the top riders in the last couple of seasons, not quite as consistent as he needed to be today, coming home in second place. 250 world champ Stefan Peter Hansel switched to the small four-strokes. He's suffering from a seriously swollen knee. He got at a race in France, and he can hardly stand on his left foot. That's some kind of handicap, but he still finishes his first race of the championship in third. Former champion Giorgio Grasso has switched to the 400s, but the long-time 250 rider is clearly having a hard time adjusting, not least to the fact that it doesn't make a noise and it won't rev. He's seventh. Nico Klaus of Germany on the new Yamaha, beg your pardon, no problem with handling these conditions, and he's turning in some good times until the final stage when he has problems and drops to 11th. This is Herbert Wagner. He's the German on the new Yamaha. He's giving the bike a little bit too much aggravation, and it finally gives up. He'll retire. So the big strokers, the 500 class. Fabio Farioli. He's been injured a number of times in the last few years. His streak of bad luck continues here. He has a bad crash on one stage, damages his hand and retires. 6 times world champ Kari Tyrinen, setting his sights on a 7th crown, and that would be a new world record. He's really an unbelievable rider. His outlook on life outside of being on the machine is utterly laid back. He's almost horizontal. Wet conditions aren't his forte, but to his surprise, he wins. Anders Ericsson, a real pro in the rain, is very disappointed to come second. It's a tough battle between these two men, and perhaps a fraction of luck might decide the outcome. Incidentally, for the Jim and Lentils crowd, Kari Tyrinen, 6 times a world champion, never been to a gym, can't spell the word lentil. Jaroslav Katrinak, the Slovak sat out a year, now he's back on the new Vetemati. In the 91 World Championship, he won the title for the Italians on a Husaberg. He's 5th on his debut for Vetemati. The Frenchman Laurent Bidou has switched to the big 4-strokers as well this year, and he kicks off the season with a good result, coming home in 4th. Well, those are the main results from day 1 in Portugal. The 1-2-5s falling quite comfortably to Passeri's KTM.